goal of aviators is now the non-stop flight around the world, and Howard Hughes has taken a big step towards attaining it. Leaving Burbank, California, the millionaire sportsman and film producer calls at New York on his way to Europe and circles the world's fairground. The fair has christened his Lockheed monoplane New York World's Fair 1939, and these pictures of the machine flying over the Manhattan skyscrapers were brought across by Howard Hughes himself. With a crew of 4 and a tailwind to help him at the end of the journey, he flies straight to Paris in 16 hours 35 minutes, less than half the time taken by Colonel Lindbergh, the only other man who has ever done it. Mr. Bullitt, the American ambassador to France, having raced by car from Paris, arrives just in time to say how do you do before Howard Hughes takes off again for Moscow.
I cannot go farther today than to say that it is very probable there will be heavy fighting in the Mediterranean and elsewhere before the leaves of autumn fall.
The invasion of Sicily by Allied forces under the supreme command of General Eisenhower has already initiated the beginning of that heavy fighting. This time a year ago, Eisenhower, who'd just come over here, expressed sober confidence in a talk at the Washington Club.
Our job over here is, with your help and with God's help, to do our part to carry that war to final victory. No matter how long it takes, the American people say, and we say, and we hope, and we know that you say, it shall be won.
As at Pantelleria, the assault was preceded by very heavy aerial bombardment. In fact, scenes taken at that time serve as an illustration, a pattern of the attack on Sicily, though of course the scale of attack must be multiplied many times. Just as the taking of Pantelleria was a necessary prelude to the next invasion, so the capture of Sicily is itself a prelude to still greater operations. However the fortunes of war may go, the opening of the invasion went according to plan. Aircraft from Malta, only about 60 miles away, played an important part in that plan, of course. Fighters and fighter bombers took off from that much-bombed island for the attack, to harry the enemy and provide an air umbrella. Airborne troops led the invasion itself, but before the big show there had been many rehearsals which included every part of their work, from packing and stowing equipment containers to the practice landing. The climax of months of intensive training ever since Britain began building up an airborne force. When the day came, skillful piloting got the glider troops down close to their objectives in spite of the worst the defenders could do. Paratroops followed. Units of a force with considerable experience of action in raids over France, as at Brunval, for example, and in the first operations in Tunisia, where they adopted the role of infantry in the early days. Paratroops and glider troops were the first to land, and they did great work in the few hours before their comrades landed in the early morning from the sea. Once again, the Mediterranean was dotted for mile upon mile with the ships of our invading force. In the original landings in North Africa, more than 500 transports were convoyed. For the invasion of Sicily, the number is unknown, but the landing craft were on time to the minute. Here's the actual start of just a few of them. Certainly there must have been a huge fleet to put the expedition ashore at all the various points between Syracuse and Licata, a stretch of round about 100 miles, rather like making landings all the way along from Margate to Beachy Head. The fact that landing craft were able to approach so vast a stretch of coast is eloquent of the mastery obtained by Allied air-sea forces over Mussolini's private lake. Opposition during the actual landings, we are told, varied from place to place. At some points it was spirited, at others only slight. And we must be thankful that early casualties were far less than might have been expected for the primary establishment of a bridgehead. Heavy fighting followed. That was obviously bound to come. But thanks to magnificently planned cooperation from the air and on the sea, the opening of this operation was a shining success. All this time, the Royal Navy's guns had been pouring shells into the coast defenses, silencing enemy batteries and covering the landings. Yes, the Royal Navy did a great job, and it was present in great strength. Berlin names at least 4 battleships, King George V and a sister ship, and Rodney and Nelson. But whatever the Allies had there in the way of big ships, the Italian Navy was at that time, at any rate, conspicuous by its absence. And you can bet the Royal Navy kept a very keen lookout for Mussolini's high-speed fleet. But protection against enemy ships was only one part of the Navy's task in this, the biggest combined operations the world has yet known. Theirs, too, was the task of getting the expedition and all its equipment to the beaches, and after that to ensure the punctual arrival of reinforcements of men and machines and food and supplies of all kinds. The task of the Allied troops was to secure the bridgeheads and advance inland. They were commanded by the old firm, Alexander, Deputy C&C, and Montgomery commanding British troops. Monty was in London in May. These shots of him have only just been released. The Allied invasion force included men from the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Americans, whose comrades are fighting the Japs on the other side of the globe, landed on the south coast of Sicily. The Canadians, after years of hard training in Britain, were also in the forefront. And the boys from the old country were right there too. Our thoughts are with them all in their tremendous task.
Bathing costumes from 1900 to the atomic age were recently displayed at Munich by French and Danish models. These, I fancy, must be 1900, yes. As the century advances, the mode changes. The swimming girl apparently feels a little hampered by the costume. Still, Frau Grundy evidently approves. The transformation to 1950 is truly atomic. Ah, that was a good one, was it not? Bikini Briefies, they call these, but the day may well come when they'll be condemned as hopelessly conventional. Ach, these Fräuleins mit der next to nothings. Disgusting. What should I look like?
What will it profit this country, accuses the mayor of Detroit, if we put a man on the moon and can't walk through our own city without fear of violence? We aim to pacify Vietnam, but what's the good if we can't pacify the American people? Americans have seen fellow Americans take the law into their own hands, rioting, burning, and looting with almost casual arrogance. The ghettos of New York spawned further violent outbreaks. The cost in damage to property alone, some £350 million. But the cost to America's peace of mind is uncountable. The causes go to the heart of our society. That's how President Johnson put it to his recently formed Commission on Civil Disorder. He has set them the fearful task of resolving the bitter legacy of race hatred. Man is not made to go about being safe and comfortable. He is constantly being driven to do unreasonable things. Some force impels him, and go he must. H.G. Wells, author of The First Men in the Moon. To turn our back on the quest for knowledge is to perish. Frank Borman, commander of Apollo 8. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Neil Armstrong, Apollo 11 commander, first man on the moon. Man sets off on his first journey to a specific destination in space, to a target in tranquility 250,000 miles away.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Now the command ship Columbia draws Eagle, the lunar module, from the third stage of the Saturn rocket. Armstrong and Aldrin leave the mothership to enter Eagle before it separates and starts its critical run towards the lunar surface. Apollo 11 has more impact on people's imagination than any such enterprise in man's history. Unlike so many great journeys of the past, it has been shared by millions as it happened.
100 feet, 3.5 down, 9 forward.
Some of us fearful of its terrifying implications, others relating technology with romance, finding a mystical, magical quality in it all.
Down a half. 6 forward.
But we remember that near tragedy during training with the lunar module simulator, ejection only fractions of a second before disaster.
Forward. Forward. 40 feet down, 2.5.
We waited during the sequences of the descent and listened breathlessly to the cool, confident dialogue of man's first landfall in space.
4 forward, drift into the right a little. Ready? Down a half. 30 seconds forward. Good. Ready? Contact light. Okay, engine stop, roll both autos, descent engine command override off. Engine arm off. 413 is in. Tranquility base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. You're looking good here.
And that's how we followed it through the immediacy of electronics. Some 600 million people, about a fifth of the world's population, shared the televigil. Long through the night, when well into the morning, we waited for the ultimate reward for Neil Armstrong to gain that first historic foothold on a new world.
Roger. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Surface is fine and powdery. I can pick it up loosely with my toe. It does adhere in fine layers, like
Edwin Aldrin joins Armstrong.
to the sole and sides of my boot.
And here are the first pictures of the lunar horizon from the surface.
Small fraction of an inch, maybe an eighth of an inch, but I can see the footprints of my boots and the treads in the fine sandy particles. Neil, this is Houston, we're copying.
Animation shows more clearly the main objective. The collection of samples from the moon's surface may hold the answers to the evolution of the Earth and the whole solar system.
It seems immediately natural to move in.
The stars and stripes symbolize far more than one nation's pride. All who watched Apollo 11 must have felt this unifying sense of mankind's participation. All that training for lunar gravity is now put to the test. It's much easier to elevate yourself on the moon, but more difficult to decelerate and keep control. As well as their footprints, which will remain undisturbed in this atmospheric void, the astronauts leave behind two scientific experiments. These will record moonquakes and constantly measure the moon's distance from Earth. This then was Moon Day, exhilarating and exhausting. The day the world acclaimed its first ambassadors to this enigmatic, seemingly unattainable lantern of the world.
I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you... For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure they too join with America in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the sea of tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth.